do.
Hello and welcome back to another flute tip of the week. As you can see, I've got two little helpers with me today. This is Squidget, this is Willow. Yeah, I came to Chicago and my mom ended up driving down all the way from Ottawa to come and see me with the dogs so that she would be able to give me an early Christmas present, which I will show you at the end of this video. It's pretty awesome, that's what I'm going to say first. Since my last few videos have been quite long and definitely going into detail about various hand positions or techniques, I thought today would be as good a time as any to talk about your practice mentality so that you can optimize your productivity without having to spend all day on a single subject. So let's jump right into it. It is important to understand the difference between having a session of mindful practice rather than having a longer session of practice that is not as focused and results in less productivity. Growing up, especially when we're going to music colleges or even academy programs when we're younger, we're always being asked how long we've been practicing. And a lot of the time, people will be almost scolded if they say they only practiced 1 or 2 hours, whereas other people will say that they've practiced between 3 and 5. What this does is, from an early age, it causes us to think that a correlation between the length of practice and the amount that you're able to get from it is more important than actually having a focused practice session which may last a shorter period of time. A lot of this is down to being able to actually be focused for a longer period of time without having any external distractions getting in the way or having your mind wander to the point that you have to do the same thing over and over again just to compensate. Let's first talk about how we are approaching our warm-ups. Depending on your commitments for the day, you may find it important to spend longer doing warm-up and doing more about sound practice and technique than actually needing to focus on doing more repertoire. Or you might have a short period of time, say if you only have maybe 20 minutes to warm up before you go to orchestra rehearsal. And it's important to understand that you're able to get the same quality of practice in a shorter period of time as it is if you have an hour to do this. A lot of it is about actually putting yourself in the right mindset so that you're not using the warm-up just to get used to the idea that you're playing the flute right now. Because this is actually a common thing that happens with most instruments. You'll be using your warm-up time not necessarily to warm up various areas of your playing, but more to get used to the idea that you are actually doing this right now. So if you have a short period of time, say 10 or 15 minutes rather than 45 or an hour to do your warm-up before you have to get to the rest of your commitments, it's important that you go into this already thinking to yourself, this is what I need to do, these are the things that I need to focus on to be ready, and just understanding that right at the start of your practice is where you have to be productive. You don't warm into being productive during the warm-up. The warm-up is supposed to be about focusing on getting your muscles ready, getting your articulation, your fingering, your sound quality all up to snuff so that you're able to do the rest of the day as a good representation of your actual ability. So don't use the warm-up just to turn your head on. Otherwise, it's going to take much longer. The same can be said for when you're doing work on various repertoire. It is very easy for me to admit that I don't spend 5 hours a day practicing. I will have days where I feel so keen and so interested that I keep on practicing, and it'll sometimes hit 5 or even 6 hours. But in general, my practice daily will be between 2 and 3 hours of very focused work. And this is where planning and really having a good understanding of how your work is going to develop comes into play. For example, if there are a few sections in a piece that I know are not up to the same standard as the rest, and that these are the sections that I need to work on and improve, I'm not going to spend time doing the rest of the piece in context of it. I am going to be focusing solely on those sections. It's like when you have a bunch of excerpts for an audition, and instead of just doing the new excerpts that you are not as familiar with, you play all the ones that you've done a million times as well. It's not going to get you anywhere. You already have a good understanding and command of this. All it does is make you more tired for when you need to do more focused work on the sections that are more difficult. And this is where you save a lot of time in your practice, because not only is it more focused on the things that you genuinely need to bring up in your quality, but you're able to develop those sections much faster because you haven't spent so much energy on things that you already have control of. I'm not saying that you never practice these sections. What I'm saying is that on days where you know that you're not in the right mindset to practice for a long period of time, or say you're very tired, either mentally or physically, so it's on these days that it's important to compartmentalize things so that you know that these are the things you need to work on daily, and these are the things that you throw in because you're already familiar with them, you know that they're going well, and they don't need daily work. Already, what doing this kind of focused sectioning is doing is it's cutting down the amount of time where you're standing in front of your music and just thinking, what do I do now? So instead of doing a 10-minute piece for an hour's period of time, you'll be doing the 3 minutes of the piece that are the most difficult and need the most work. And so instead of having a full hour just working on this one piece, you can have perhaps 20 or 30 minutes of very focused work on the sections that need to be improved. And then that allows you to spend the rest of this hour on the next piece that is having some difficulty, or doing exercises so that the sections in the piece that you're doing will flow much easier. Finally, I want to talk about when to know to be done for the day. So this isn't about taking breaks during your practice. This isn't about knowing when to change pieces. This is knowing when your mind is not with it anymore, or you're physically too tired, or just overall you do not have any more juice to be able to keep working in a productive way. Yes, we are able to still play the flute when we're very tired. Yes, we can continue to play with a decent sound after our face is already quite sore. But again, this is not productive. This is not working towards the greater good. If anything, what this does is it undoes a lot of the work that you were doing to be able to have a good focused approach so that you aren't training yourself to be used to zoning out during certain parts of a piece. So if you have been doing your really focused practice for the day, say spread out over multiple hours rather than just doing 2 hours straight, at the end of all of this, you need to know that if your head is now having more difficulty and you're needing to take more breaks to be able to focus on even a single bar of music, then this is when you need to put it down for the rest of the day. And really, when you combine all of these aspects with understanding how to engage yourself at the start of a warm-up, compartmentalizing your practice so that you get the most out of your time constraints, and also knowing when to finish, you will end up having much more productive practice and much faster and better results in a shorter period of time. So again, that tip was it's important to understand the difference between a shorter session of mindful practice and a session of practice that's hours longer but is unfocused and results in less productivity. I hope you find this week's tip helpful. I hope it didn't come off too much as a rant, as did my hand position soliloquy. So until next week, flute happy, practice happy, and happily be mindful. So the Christmas present that my mom came all the way to Chicago to bring to me is a tuffet, so that I can feel like Miss Muffet. Just look how beautiful that is. It's like something from Alice in Wonderland.